Today we're going to talk about the geoprocessing results window. What is it? Where do you find it? When do you want to use it, and why? And then how this relates to log files. So I've got some data up here on the screen. A little DEM in hillshades and some soil data, and we'll start with these, and we'll run a few processes on these, and I'll show you what's created in the geoprocessing results window as we go through these. Now, where do you find the geoprocessing results window? If you go up to the what we're going to Okay, so in order to create a few things to put in a geoprocessing window, results window, I'm going to turn on the soils, and the first thing I think I'll do is run a dissolve. And this is a simple process, and it's one of the default ones under the geoprocessing menu. And we'll simplify our soil data set by dissolving some common boundaries between classes that have the same drainage class. So if we go up to the geoprocessing menu, and then, as I mentioned, it is some of the default tools available there, and we can go down and say dissolve. It's a straightforward dialog. We put in the input features, which in this case will be our soils. We'll create an output feature class and give it a name. And we'll give it a name based on this factory using drainage class. And then we select the field that we want to dissolve upon. And it happens for this data set, what we want is drainage CL. And this is simply a quick drainage classification of soils, and we'll go through the processing. And in the lower corner of the window you see that I'm processing in the background. So I've set this up for processing in the background. Here's our resulting data set, and I'm just going to go in and change the symbology a little bit, and I'll copy the symbology from our other Ithaca soils data set so that we have we're using the same colors scheme setting up with on a drainage class. And you can see it's simplified the data set. And again, the reason I'm doing this is to create some entries into the geoprocessing results window. And I think one more thing we might want to do is run a simple buffer. And so let's run a buffer on a data set. A simple buffer. So let's run a buffer on the wetlands. And again, buffer is one of these default tools available under the menu, and we'll pop up the buffer dialog. We'll add in or we'll select to use build the buffers on the wetlands. Give it a feature class name, and the root is pretty useful, but we'll add on there the fact we're going to buffer it by 100, and we'll type in there 100 for 100 meters. And we'll simply create some buffers around the wetlands of 100 meters. Now, I'm not really heading for any particular process here. I'm just creating results in the geoprocessing results window. Just zoom in a little bit so that you can see what the physical results are. Now if we go up to the geoprocessing menu again, that's where we will find our results window. That's about 3/4 of the way down at the bottom of the second section of menu options. There's results. If we select that, it opens up the results window. In the results window, we have a current session and we have some previous sessions. The current session is obviously the one that you're currently in. These are related to your map documents. And if we look at any particular tool, every time you run a geoprocessing tool, there's an entry. We can look at the ones in the past as they're broken out in different times, going back weeks or months, however length of time you've selected to keep the logs and the results. So if we select one of these tools, like the dissolve, the first one we ran, we see that there's like 4 sections of information there. There's the first one that identifies what the output feature class is, what the results, where the physical results went. There's an option for inputs, and it tells us the different inputs into the dialog for doing a dissolve. And we can see what those are, so we know what went into the dialog for each of the different parameters. The next section down identifies all the environment variables that were in play at the time that the dissolve was processed. And many times an environment variables can have an impact on the physical results that you get from running that particular tool, and it's important to know what was in play, what environment settings were at the time. And if we take a look down to the last section, it's the messages section at the bottom of that grouping. And this is where it tells you that it's starting to run, executing the program that the tool that you selected. It tells you the start time. Excuse me. It gives you the feedback that you would normally get in the command window executing the tool, and then it gives you the end time, so you know exactly how long that tool took to run on that particular data set. Very useful if in the future you need to rerun the tool on something. You have an idea, well, this is going to take me an hour or 2 hours or whatever. So those are the different sections within what that are recorded, the information that's stored every time you run a specific tool in ArcGIS. So this was the dissolve one. Similar things are kept, obviously, for the buffer tool. So we can expand that out, and then of course we have the same grouping of 4, where we talk about the actual command itself and the results, the output feature class, the input parameters, the environment variables, and the messages. Now the other neat thing in the results window is that you can run a tool just by clicking on it, double clicking on it, and it brings up the tool dialog with the information as it was in the original run of that particular tool, and then you can edit it and run the tool again. So if we say we didn't really mean to run 100-meter buffers, that we misread it, what the client really wanted us to do is do a 100-foot buffer. So you could do that. You could just go into the results window, bring up the dialog by double-clicking on the tool, make changes, and then rerun the tool. And it saves you having to add in a lot of the other variables, and you know that all the environment variables are the same. And you can just rerun the tool and get another output. So that's one of the handy little advantages of this results window, besides actually giving you all the information that was in play at the time that you ran that particular geoprocessing tool. Now, any tool, any geoprocessing tool that's in the toolbox, when you run it, will produce an entry in your history and something that you can view in your results window. Now there's another way of running tools, and that's to create models, and then you can run the model and do multiple processing or repeated processing of data sets and things like that. And within a model you can see what the settings for each of the individual tools were at the time it was last run. So you can then run the model, and right now we're doing a model that's buffering and it's going to do a clipping. And then once this model is completed, we'll close it out. There we go. And then we'll go up to the geoprocessing menu and we'll take a look at the results window. So we pop open the results window, and nothing that we run within the model shows up there. Neither the buffer nor the clip tool gets recorded into the results window. There's nothing put into the history log of anything that you run within a model environment. Now, the other thing is, how do you control how big your history is and whether this is even the history is even kept? And if you go up to the geoprocessing menu, there is an option there where you can select how whether or not if you go up to the geoprocessing window and select geoprocessing options, you can turn on and off. If you go up to the geoprocessing menu and go to geoprocessing options, within their dialog, you do have the option to turn on or off the logging process of the tools, and you also have the capability down towards the bottom of that dialog to specify how long the history is kept, in a matter of weeks up to a number of months. So you can adjust this to whatever your needs are, and then and close it out there. Now, once you are doing this, you also want to know, well, where is the history actually kept on the hard drive? So that's what I'll show you next. This history log that's being kept is stored inside of your user login. I'm currently running Windows 7, and if you go to users on Windows 7 in the C drive, you'll see your login. And for me, I'm logging in as SDS3, and I go into there, and there should be an application data folder. I go into that, and within that there's a roaming folder. Inside of that we go into the ESRI. Inside the ESRI there's a desktop. It's a pretty extensive path. From there we go into ARC Toolbox, and from there there's a history folder. We can open that up, and we have a number of history files, all dated so that we can tell exactly when they were created. And it's these files, if you open them up, they're in XML format. And this is all of the commands, all of the geoprocessing commands that you ran, and all of the input parameters used for those specific commands. Although this XML format stores all this information, it's not as easily read and understood and broken apart as nicely as the geoprocessing result window.